Okay, so this is week 3 attendance that's recorded before week 3 is actually here. And the reason I'm saying this is that this video that you're watching right now, it will be made available, obviously in the week 3, but it's going to help you understand this item. And as I mentioned last week on attendance, that there was a little bit of confusion about this one. So there is a start here, and I still recommend watching that, but I'm going to give you just a little shortened, condensed version of what I want. So in this week, we move into actually doing and learning about coding. And my hope is that not my hope, my requirement. It used to be that I allowed students to do notes, but I found that it's really more helpful for them to code along. So in order to have you code along, I'm going to have you use Google Drive to do so. And when you look at this lynda.com, and this is going to be true for the next two assignments that you have, because we do this for 2 weeks, I think. This item does have what's called these exercise files. Now, I've looked at these exercise files again today just to verify this, and you don't actually need these exercise files because you can recreate everything that is in here. And let me just show you, and then I actually will move over to Windows and show you in a minute. So I went ahead and downloaded that whole exercise file. Here they are, and these files give you what's a finished file, so what it would look like at the end, which is good for reference so that you know what it looks like in case you run into it. But you can recreate, like for the first one, this syntax file, because really all it has is some content in it, and you can easily do that, and I'll show you how. So you don't really have to. He'll say in the video, right, open this and start from here. And you can browse through here and see, right, if there's anything you would. But most of this you could just recreate and find other things and get creative and have fun with it, really. And let me show you how I think the best way for you to do this, because what you'll end up doing is coding along with him, not necessarily in these chapter, although you are going to do for this assignment, just to verify what we're talking about, 1, 2, and 3, right? So here's what I think works best. Up on your Google Drive, up in the shared with Rio, and I did this just to make sure it worked, and it does, I would create a new folder, and I would call this week 3. Okay, so now that week 3 is up there. Now, once you have that set up, this is where you'll place all the files, but you don't actually move them, physically put them. What you do, and I showed this in the video, so again, I definitely still recommend, and let me just, because you're not going to go, you're going to go, what? So in your setup, you're going to end up doing, and this is why I recommend watching the videos, installing something in your system called Google Backup and Sync. And after you install that into your system, you have an option here to actually go in under the hamburger and set preferences. Okay, so what's kind of cool about this is you click on Drive, and then you navigate to your CIT82 Fall 18. I go click into the arrow to find the next directory down, and right here I was playing around, so I'm just going to add this one. I'm going to take away that one. So this would be the example of you setting up the folder that is actually going to look to the editor, Visual Studio Code, like it's a folder on your computer, but whenever you complete that work, or it just sends it out to Drive. And then I'll show you at the end how you share with me. And all you have to share with me is the folder. Okay, and you've already shared it in the sense of shared with Rio, but I'm talking about in the sense of how you turn it in. Okay, so now that that's there, appears to be, folder won't appear, but will show up in the Drive folder. Let me try that again. So right now it's syncing. That's why. So now what I'm going to do here, right, so now that I have that, I'm going to go ahead and close my folder so you can, I thought I did, close the editor. But I would then File, Open a Folder, and on my local system I can click on Drive, right? And under Drive I click on this directory, and then under Shared with Rio I see the week 3. Double click in here and then say, actually I'm sorry, back up one more. Just click on the week 3. So you'll do this again for week 4. Just click on Select Folder. So now what's happening here, and he'll have you go through and create he'll say open a file, and all you need to do is create a file, because most of the time there's hardly any content in there. I mean, if you really want to, you could open that downloaded exercise file and copy and paste some of that content, but just make up some content, right? So in this case, I would create a file, like on that first one, called syntax.html. Cool. So now the nice thing here is too, and I talk about this, make sure auto save is on, that way as soon as you're working, it's saving the work. And so I'm going to do a little shortcut, which is nice, that you learn about later, called emit, that actually just writes the basic HTML structure for you, and you learn about this all through there. So if you start on that first one, you might just have some content, okay, and then what he has you, and just write some, write something funny, write something fun. You could write what he has. It only takes a minute. Since you're not doing notes, this is kind of a nice way to just kind of compensate for a little of that. Okay, so now once you do that, and again, if you have auto save, let me just switch a minute now to show you on Drive. What's happening is that I didn't do anything, that just showed up because it's syncing those two. Okay, so that's what you do. Go through, create the files, do the coding. You may end up with a couple of files in there when you get all the way through 1, 2, and 3. If there's a specific question about one, throw it out on chat and we'll answer it, right, if you're not sure. But again, you can just download that exercise file and look at it locally so you can see what he wants, but typically you can just recreate them. Okay, last step is, once you're done, how do you submit it, right? So in your lecture in here, right, I don't have it here, but I'll just create it real quick. In your Google blank doc, we'll call it lectures, right? For this week, right? So for week 3, and hopefully you know what I like here, right? And then you'll have Monday, right, because you'll have some notes, right? And then Thursday, you'll have some notes, and still watch the videos. This is just to help you out, right? So then you'll have for the lecture, right? So for the, I can't remember how I had this. Just let me look real quick. For Thursday, class topics, Monday, right? So in this case, this person actually ended up taking a few notes just so she had them, but then she just submitted the drive to me. And that's what I wanted to say, is in your document, right? For that, then all you'd have to do in your lecture doc is just give me your drive URL. Now, how would you do that? Pretty simple, right? So in this case, our 3, this is where you copy, boom. And in here, this would be, your code along. And this would be for like chapter 1 through 3, right? And again, you can format this however you want, right? Something like that. But play with it, right? So, by the way, how do you make that a link, right? You come up here, boom. That way when I see it, you could also make this a shortened link. But again, this is really the idea of, instead of having to just passively watch lectures, I want you to engage with this content because you learn much more. Okay, and if there's any question, like again, he'll tell you to open up an exercise file and start from there. Just have it downloaded on your computer, look at it, and then just recreate that content. And if you need to, and I can show you this, and I have this on my Mac side, but it doesn't matter. In my editor, I could actually, and I've done this here, just open this in the editor. And if there was a lot of content, I could just copy it like that and then open another file, right? So then I could open another, oh, that's not the right one. Open another workspace, another folder. So that's another way you could do it, is move back and forth. But I think it's fairly easy to recreate. And again, because you're not taking notes, that should be okay. Okay, so this is your week 3 attendance. I am going to make it available at least for you to view, but not to do attendance before week 3, because Cameron was great enough to look ahead and say, hey Rio, I'm trying to do this and it's not making sense. So this is the attendance that is hoped to help you work through this really important item in our class. Let me know if you have any questions.